Track 8.
Now that we have concluded our discussion of all the old business on today's agenda, could we proceed to the first item of new business? James, are you ready to present your proposed Earth Day Film Festival schedule?
Yes, thank you. This year I thought we should choose films made by a single director who has focused on the theme of ecology and the relationship between human beings and the environment throughout his film career. Hayao Miyazaki. As many of you know, Miyazaki is a Japanese filmmaker whose animated movies have become increasingly popular in North America. His films appeal to children and adults as the storylines are very engaging and the animation is beautiful. I have chosen 3 of his films that span his long film career and also demonstrate that environmental issues have been at the forefront of his work for decades. I'd like to start with his most recent movie, Ponyo. Ponyo would be our matinee feature. It is the kind of movie that parents could bring very young children to. Miyazaki himself has said it's a movie for 5-year-olds. In the movie, Miyazaki deals with the issue of ocean pollution. About 8 minutes into the movie, a large boat is using a net to catch fish. However, not surprisingly, the net is quickly filled up with more than just fish. Lots of garbage gets picked up along with Ponyo, the girl goldfish character at the center of the story. Ponyo gets trapped in a glass bottle and is only rescued when a small boy named Sosuke finds her. So, right at the start of the film, Miyazaki is making a statement about how ocean creatures and water can be destroyed by human beings. Ponyo's father, Fujimoto, is the character that is most critical of human beings and their treatment of the oceans throughout the film.
That sounds very interesting, James. Is there a real place that inspired Miyazaki? If there is, we should note it in the program.
Yes, it is inspired by a real place in Japan called Seto Island. When I was researching this movie's backstory, I came across this quote from Miyazaki. "I saw how people have polluted the sea, and I came back home angry. I don't think we're born with a natural tendency to protect the environment. I think it's something we learn if we're educated and brought up to have the manners to care for the world."
That's excellent, James. We should include that quote in the program to encourage parents to talk about the issue of ocean polluting with their children. So, which films have you chosen for the evening's double bill?
I've chosen Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind and Princess Mononoke.
I've heard of Princess Mononoke, of course. It was one of the best movies of the 1990s, in my opinion. But what about Nausicaa? I've never heard of that.
Well, Nausicaa came out much earlier than Princess Mononoke. It was released in 1984. The movie was actually presented by the Worldwide Fund for Nature.
Well, what sort of environmental themes does the movie touch on? In terms of our festival, this is the most important issue we need to address.
Well, like Ponyo, it deals with pollution, but in a much more complex way.
So this isn't a kids' movie?
I don't think it would be appropriate for young kids, but like Princess Mononoke, I think it's okay for teens and adults.
So, how does it deal with pollution?
Well, let me read you part of the introduction to the manga Miyazaki also wrote. I think it'll help you to understand. In a few short centuries, industrial civilization had spread from the western fringes of Eurasia to sprawl across the face of the planet, plundering the soil of its riches, fouling the air, and remolding life forms at will. The cities burned, welling up as clouds of poison, the war remembered as the 7 days of fire. Almost all the surface of the earth was transformed into a sterile wasteland.
Wow, that's depressing.
James, we don't want the audience to think that there's no hope for the environment and there's nothing they can do.
But that's definitely not what Miyazaki is trying to say in this film. I would say the film acts more as a warning and emphasizes that it's important to value our environment. The film is a science fiction fantasy and is set in a post-apocalyptic world.
Oh, I see. Can you tell us a bit more about the story?
Sure. Basically, Nausicaa is the princess of the valley. The valley is safe from the poisonous air because the wind blows the poisons away. However, near the beginning of the movie, Nausicaa walks through the toxic forest wearing a gas mask. She is amazed by the beauty of the forest, and we find out later that she is trying to find a cure for her father and others in the valley suffering from a disease. She later learns that the plants themselves are not poisonous. It is the soil itself which is polluted, and human beings are responsible for that poison. There are also huge insects called ohumu that protect the forest, and it becomes clear that their anger, as it says towards the end of the film, is the anger of the earth. There's a lot more to the story, but I recommend watching it on DVD before Earth Day.
Well, that would pair nicely with Princess Mononoke. It fits in with the human versus the nature theme. There is definitely a conflict in that movie between the forest animal spirits and the Irontown industrialists.
That's what I thought. Mononoke, like Nausicaa, is defending a forest against the destructive influence of human beings. However, the people of Irontown are not exactly villains. They are trying to survive too.
Yes, I think Princess Mononoke demonstrate that there is not a clear-cut issue, and debate and discussion are necessary.
It's a good way to end our film festival and to encourage the beginning of dialogue about these issues, and, of course, introducing more people to Miyazaki and encouraging them to see his films.
So, shall we take a vote then? All who approve the proposed Earth Day Film Festival schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Good work, James.